junk they can't sell to stores, but they'll do little side deals. There's lots of corruption and payoffs that have come out in the news, and they'll sell it and foist it on the inmates.
Sure they will. And the same thing with medications. If medications, it's no news to inmates, again, that medications can be in the medical unit that are completely expired, and they're using these medications.
All right, let's go over this, though, in the time we have. You brought up Factor 8 being a big issue. Knowing they had HIV and hepatitis, letting them give the blood, not once a month like they're supposed to, but every week. And then somehow drugs are getting into the prison from the jail guards and others, so there's a business within there. It's all they've got to sell is blood, and then people get AIDS from it. I mean, this is insane. And I'm sure in all your research, you've run into all the news reports about medical testing where these are ignorant inmates or they need money, and they say, oh, we've got a medical experiments we'll do on you if you do this. Do you have anything on that or more on Factor 8?
Yes, on the medical experiments, and I do not have the data in front of me to tell you statistics on that. But in essence, do they take place? Well, I'm sure they do. But in order to have that done, inmates have got to sign off on stuff. You know, they're going to have to sign forms. And if they don't sign forms, then that's cause for alarm. I'm going to make a conjecture here that very few inmates are going to succumb to some kind of a medical experiment without signing a form.
No, they have them do that, but the food they can't eat, so they say, do this, and we'll give you easy labor, we'll give you good food. I mean, that's what's come out in the news. The inmate.
And I'm not going to, that's almost a wasted argument, only from the standpoint is, as I said before, inmates aren't stupid. They know how to live, they know how to survive within a prison setting, far beyond what any person out here in society knows how to do. And we can't even imagine what they have to go through, we can only guess, because we're not going to be told, and very few inmates want to talk about it. So I'm real hesitant to say, oh, golly gee whiz, the government's really taking advantage of these people. Are they taking advantage of them? Maybe, and not being transparent and forthcoming as to exactly what the medical testing is. However, these inmates can push the envelope to find out. So if they really don't want to find out and they really don't care, it could be even a form of suicide. They just go, well, whatever.
No, I understand that, but I mean, here's an example. I can pull up the headlines right now. I covered them 2 weeks ago, where they tell homeless people in Europe, this is a regular flu shot, we'll pay you 200 euros to take it, and they take it, and it's a bird flu experimental shot, and they all die. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of lying by Big Pharma.
Well, absolutely. But see, I think it goes back again. People aren't thinking, and people aren't asking questions. You just don't take anybody's word for anything. I tell my clients all the time, if it's not documented and you don't have it in front of you in black and white, then it ain't happening. It doesn't exist, and it's not happening. And you've got to learn to zero in on facts and require facts from the very people that are trying to give them to you. And don't take anybody's word for it until you get the same answer in 3 different places.
Yeah. The prison population is continuing to balloon. They are using the public schools kind of as induction centers into the prison institutionalization grid. Is there any view on when this is going to top off or how many it'll end up being? We already have a record number.
I would, in every state, due to the economy, and your state's one of them, they're looking for ways to cut these inmates loose early. They can't afford them. In your state, for example, the Pew Foundation is in working on a deal with the Texas Department of Corrections and your state politicians, trying to figure out ways to cut costs and let some of these inmates that are in there for petty crimes loose. Now, the problem is, in order to cut those costs, the Board of Probation and Parole has got to come on board and agree with them. And guess what your state Board of Probation and Parole has said they're going to do? Nothing. They're not going to reroute their guidelines. They're not going to change their guidelines. So what that tells me, because they're refusing to change the guidelines for release, somebody in the statistical world is going to start, as they always do, determining in cycles when prisons need to be built, when juvenile detention centers need to be built, and when high schools need to be built. Because they're going to take a certain percentage of the population between a certain age group to determine when that population is going to hit that key mark of whether it's 17 to 22 or 17 to 23, when they have the propensity to offend the highest.
And we've had a baby boom. They've had a baby boom.
That determines when they're going to build these prisons. I really don't ever see the prison population in the foreseeable future becoming less very fast.
That's right. No matter what happens to the economy, they're going to keep the peaceful potheads in there.
Well, that's exactly right. And the lifers in there, even if you've got life with the possibility of parole, they don't want to cut these guys loose. Without these inmates in there, they can't keep the doors open. These prisoners are a commodity. And prisons is big business. It is big business. You've got at least 4 prison HMOs that have got the corner on the market in the entire United States.
And it's only going to get bigger.
Billions.
And so they're going to make more laws, put more of us in prison, and then feed us poison. Now expanding on that, you keep talking about your state. We're on in many states all over the country, but I am sitting in the capital of Austin, Texas,
yes,
while the legislature's in session. And Texas is, for those that don't know, the U.S. is the capital of prisons, but in the world, but Texas is the king. We have more prisons.
Number 2.
Oh, really?
California's number 1.
Okay, well, then I guess a few years ago, Texas was still number 1. But I know Texas brings people in from other states, though. I've read many places that Texas is number 1.
Well, I'll just make the argument. It's 1 or 2. It's just like the prison HMOs, depending on the contracts, and you just said it, depending on how many outside inmates you are importing.
Yeah,
with
those numbers.
For those too.
Yeah, with those numbers, I believe Texas is numero uno. I know the huge illegal alien influx and that crime wave in California that it may have grown past that.
Well, that's a whole other issue. Boy, you got that problem for sure.
And they're allowed to kill people, and there's no extradition, so they run back across the border. So that's a lot of fun there. But they want to let those guys go. Got to keep the potheads in jail. So that continues there as the rocket attacks and car bombings intensify on the Texas border. Specifically, though, I know it's big business. I'm sure you heard about the Tulia, Texas case where they grabbed 56 black people with no drugs or planted them on them and knew they were innocent to literally put them in the town prison because that was the only business.
Yeah. Not uncommon. It happens everywhere. And this is the kind of stuff people are not aware of. Of course, there are people that happen to are aware of it, but then when they say it, everybody thinks they're nuts. It's exactly what's happening. It's exactly what's happening. And they need the money. You know, without those inmates in there, they can't open those doors. And people need to remember, correctional staff doesn't run these prisons. These inmates run it.
And
without these inmates doing the work, they don't stay awake.
And God forbid that we actually shut some prisons. You know, the factories can close, everything else can go bankrupt, all the shops can close, but you will just have prisons and police and troops marching up and down the street, and that's the new economy we're converting into.
That's pretty true. That's pretty true, and we haven't even hit on these prison HMOs, these managed healthcare companies.
Yeah, go over that.
It's just like an HMO out here. These guys, these corporations are just unrelentless. They give the facade of healthcare without giving it. And they put roadblock after roadblock in front of these inmates and play with them as far as what they're required to do in the prison system form-wise, and absolutely, categorically, premeditatedly denying them the adequate health care that they're presenting themselves with.
The VA's doing that, and now Obama's announced, Associated Press, that he wanted the troops to pay for their own health care.
Yeah, and you know, I do believe if this health care thing pans out the way everybody says it's going to, which I think is a real possibility, I wrote something a while back that says just prison health care for everybody, because that's what it's going to end up like.
See, I didn't read your writing, but that's what everything is converting to this. Here's an aspirin for your heart attack. Here's your government.
Exactly right.
Here's your government paid for health care. And then the corporations just keep all the money. That's their socialized health care, yeah.
That's exactly right. And what we try to do with these families is you've got to learn how to document against these folks. And that's what we do. Our consulting is you've got to learn how to do it. And to learn how to do it, you're really going to have to commit your time and your resources in order to fight for the inmate, because they cannot do it on their own.
Well, my father's thought about even getting out of dentistry and oral surgery, because with the new federal rules and all of it, they have computers now, just like the regular doctors.
Yes.
And if the person has an HMO or insurance, it tells you what you can do. And he says it's totally illegal. He caused a big stink in his company and sent some letters to the state, and you pointed out this is a violation of state law and federal law that the computers are practicing medicine now, and then stopped it. But most of the doctors and just bow down. Yes, whatever the government says. Oh my God, I love you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really think that's what people are headed for, and everybody that thought that Obama's deal was such a great idea, a lot of my clients fit that mold. They're